Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the stars through the main screen. The ship moved quietly through space while her crew worked at their stations. Lisa had been commanding this vessel for 3 years now, and she knew every sound it made. Today something felt different, but she could not say what it was. The communication system made a soft beeping sound. Katie Sullivan turned from her position at the tactical station. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue eyes looked worried. She had been Lisa's tactical officer for 2 years, and Lisa trusted her judgment completely. "Captain, we are getting a distress signal," Katie said. Her voice was calm, but Lisa could hear the concern underneath. "It is coming from the edge of known space near the Zephyrian border." Lisa walked over to Katie's station. The border with the Zephyrian Empire had been quiet for months, but intelligence reports suggested they were expanding into new territories. Any human settlement in that area would be in serious danger. "Put it through," Lisa ordered. The main screen changed to show static and then cleared to reveal a young woman with brown hair and frightened eyes. Her clothes were torn, and there was dirt on her face. Behind her, Lisa could see smoke and flashing lights. "This is Amy Brooks calling any human ship in range," the woman said. Her voice shook with fear. "We are under attack by unknown aliens. They appeared out of nowhere and started destroying our colony. We need immediate evacuation. Please, if anyone can hear this, we have women and children here. We cannot hold them off much longer." The signal cut to static and then went silent. Lisa stared at the screen for a moment. Every instinct told her this was dangerous, but the same instincts also told her they had to help. She had joined the space service to protect human lives, and that was exactly what Amy Brooks was asking her to do. Beth Adams looked up from the engineering station. She was a small woman with red hair and sharp green eyes. Her fingers never stopped moving over her control panel as she monitored the ship's systems. "Captain, the signal came from coordinates that put it right on the edge of Zephyrian space. If we go there, we will be very exposed." "How long to reach those coordinates?" Lisa asked. 4 hours at maximum speed," Beth replied. "But Captain, our intelligence reports say the Zephyrians have been moving ships into that area. We could be flying into a trap." Lisa nodded. She had read the same reports. The Zephyrians were a cat-like species that had built a powerful empire through conquest. They were skilled hunters and fighters who respected strength above all else. They also had advanced technology that made their ships faster and more powerful than most human vessels. Dr. Helen Price spoke from the medical station. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes who had served on many ships during her career. "Captain, if there really are civilians under attack, we have to try to help them. That is what we swore to do when we put on these uniforms." Lisa looked around the bridge at her crew. These were good people who had chosen to serve far from Earth to protect other humans. She knew they would follow her orders whatever she decided, but she also knew they wanted to help Amy Brooks and her people. "Katie, what do we know about Zephyrian attack patterns?" Lisa asked. Katie pulled up information on her screen. "They prefer surprise attacks using small, fast ships. They like to disable their targets rather than destroy them completely. Intelligence thinks they want to capture human technology and study it. So if this is a real attack, the colony might still be salvageable," Lisa said. "Yes, Captain, but if this is a trap, we could lose the ship and everyone on it," Katie replied. Lisa walked back to her command chair and sat down. Command decisions were never easy, but this one felt especially difficult. Save innocent lives or protect her ship and crew. In the end, there was really only one choice she could make and still look at herself in the mirror. "Set course for those coordinates," she ordered. "Maximum speed, but keep all weapons ready and shields up. Katie, I want continuous scans of the area. If you see anything that does not belong there, I want to know immediately." "Aye, Captain," Katie said. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls as she programmed the course. "We will reach the colony in 4 hours. Beth, make sure we are ready for anything," Lisa continued. "I want the engines running at peak efficiency and all backup systems online. Helen, prepare the medical bay for casualties. We might be bringing back injured people." The crew worked quickly to prepare the ship. Lisa remained in her chair and watched the stars speed past on the main screen. Something still felt wrong about this situation, but she could not ignore people who needed help. That was not who she was. Far away in the darkness of space, a large ship waited silently. Its hull was black and covered with sharp angles that made it look like some kind of predatory animal. Inside the ship, tall figures with fur and pointed ears moved through corridors lit by soft blue light. Commander Silthara stood in the center of her ship's bridge and watched displays that showed the approaching human vessel. She was tall and graceful with silver fur and bright amber eyes. Her uniform was black with silver trim and marked her as one of the Empire's most successful commanders. "The humans took the bait," said Subcommander Kesara. She was younger than Silthara, with dark gray fur and green eyes. "Their ship is approaching. The false colony, exactly as you predicted." Silthara smiled and showed sharp white teeth. She had studied human behavior for years and knew their weaknesses well. Humans could not resist helping others even when it put them in danger. This made them predictable and easy to manipulate. "Excellent," Silthara said. "Continue transmitting the distress signal, but make it weaker. I want them to think the colony is being overrun. Fear will make them hurry, and hurrying will make them careless." The bridge of the Zephyrian ship was filled with sophisticated equipment that could create realistic holographic projections across vast distances. The human colony that Amy Brooks appeared to be calling from did not exist. It was nothing more than light and energy shaped to fool human sensors. "Commander, why not simply attack their ship directly?" asked another officer. "We have more firepower and better speed." Silthara turned to look at the officer with disappointment. "Because, Lieutenant Veltha, we are not just hunting one ship. We are hunting an entire species. This human vessel will lead us to Earth, and Earth will give us access to all human territory. Patience now will give us everything we want later." The Defiance continued toward the coordinates while its crew prepared for rescue operations. None of them knew they were flying toward the most sophisticated trap the Zephyrian Empire had ever constructed. The hunter was about to become the hunted. But the true question was, which species would prove to be the better predator? The UES Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a small solar system. Captain Lisa Morgan watched the main screen as her ship's sensors began scanning the area. What they found matched the distress call perfectly. A small, human settlement sat on the surface of a rocky planet while strange alien ships circled overhead like vultures. "I am reading the colony," Katie Sullivan reported from her tactical station. 20 buildings and what looks like about 200 people. There are also 4 unknown vessels in orbit. They match no known design in our database." Lisa studied the tactical display. The alien ships were sleek and dark with curved hulls that reminded her of hunting cats. They moved with a grace that suggested advanced technology and skilled pilots. "Any signs of weapons fire?" she asked. "Yes, Captain," Katie replied. "I am detecting energy signatures consistent with plasma weapons. Several buildings show damage, and there are scorch marks around the settlement perimeter." Dr. Helen Price moved to stand beside Lisa's chair. "Captain, I am reading human life signs from the surface, but some of them appear to be injured. We need to get down there quickly." Lisa nodded. Everything looked exactly like what Amy Brooks had described in her distress call. A small human colony under attack by unknown aliens with people trapped and nowhere to run. It was the kind of situation that demanded immediate action. "Beth, can you get us close enough to beam people up?" Lisa asked her chief engineer. Beth Adams worked at her station for a moment before responding. "The alien ships are using some kind of interference field, but I think I can punch through it. Give me 10 minutes to modify our transporters." "You have 5 minutes," Lisa said. "Katie, prepare a shuttle for evacuation duty and get Sergeant Nancy Clark ready to lead a rescue team. I want Marines on the ground protecting our people while we beam up the colonists." Nancy Clark was a tough woman, with short black hair and muscles that came from years of military training. She had served with Lisa on 2 previous ships and had never failed to complete a mission. If anyone could protect the evacuation, it was Nancy. The preparations moved quickly as the Defiance approached the planet. The alien ships seemed to notice their arrival, but made no move to attack. Instead, they pulled back slightly as if giving the humans room to work. Lisa found this behavior strange, but had no time to analyze it. "Transporters are ready, Captain," Beth announced. "I can start beaming people up whenever you give the order." "Nancy, are your Marines ready?" Lisa asked over the communication system. "Ready and waiting." "Captain," came Nancy's voice from the shuttle bay. "My team is armed and equipped for hostile environment operations. We can hold a perimeter for as long as you need." Lisa took a deep breath. Something still felt wrong about this situation, but people were dying while she hesitated. Launch the shuttle and begin evacuation procedures. Beam up the injured first, then start with the children and elderly. The shuttle left the Defiance and headed for the planet's surface while the ship's transporters began their work. The first group of colonists appeared in the transport chamber looking frightened and confused. Dr. Helen Price was waiting for them with her medical team. Amy Brooks was among the first group brought aboard. She looked exhausted, and her clothes were torn and dirty, but she seemed uninjured. Helen quickly checked her over while Amy explained what had happened to the colony. "They came out of nowhere," Amy said. Her voice shook as she remembered the attack. "We had no warning at all. One moment everything was normal, and the next these ships were firing on our buildings. We tried to fight back, but our weapons could not penetrate their shields." Helen nodded sympathetically while she ran medical scans. "You are safe now," she said. "We will get everyone off the planet and take you somewhere secure." More colonists appeared in the transport chamber as the evacuation continued. The rescue was going smoothly, but something was bothering Beth Adams at the engineering station. The energy readings from the planet were not quite what she expected to see. "Captain?" Beth called out. "I am getting some unusual readings from the colony site. The power signatures do not match standard human equipment." "What kind of readings?" Lisa asked. "The buildings are showing energy patterns that suggest holographic projection systems," Beth replied. "Very sophisticated ones, but definitely artificial." Katie looked up from her tactical station with concern. "Captain, I am also seeing some anomalies. The alien ships are maintaining perfect formation even though they appear to be randomly positioned. That suggests a level of coordination that does not match their apparent primitive attack pattern." Lisa felt a cold chill run down her spine. She had been in enough battles to recognize when something was not what it appeared to be. "Beth, can you get a detailed scan of one of the buildings?" she asked. Beth worked at her controls for several minutes before shaking her head. "Captain, there is too much interference from the alien ships. I cannot get a clear reading." Dr. Helen Price was finishing her examination of Amy Brooks when she noticed something strange. The medical scanner was showing energy patterns in Amy's body that did not match normal human physiology. Small traces of exotic particles that suggested recent exposure to advanced technology. "Amy," Helen said carefully, "can you tell me more about these aliens? What did they look like?" Amy described tall figures with fur and cat-like features who moved with fluid grace. They had advanced weapons and technology, but seemed more interested in studying the colony than destroying it completely. Her description was detailed and consistent, but something about the way she spoke bothered Helen. On the planet's surface, Nancy Clark and her Marines had established a defensive perimeter around the landing zone. The alien ships continued to circle overhead but showed no signs of attacking. Nancy found this strange since most hostile species would try to prevent a rescue operation. "Sergeant Clark to Captain Morgan," Nancy said over her radio. "The situation down here is not adding up. I am seeing battle damage but no bodies and no blood. The scorch marks look fresh, but there are no weapon fragments or debris that would indicate a real fight." Lisa felt her suspicions growing stronger. "Nancy, can you get close enough to examine one of the damaged buildings?" she asked. "Already on, Captain," Nancy replied. She moved carefully toward a building that showed signs of plasma weapon damage. When she got close enough to touch the wall, she discovered that her hand passed right through it. "Captain, this building is a hologram. The entire colony is fake." Before Lisa could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Katie's hands flew over her tactical controls as new contacts appeared on the sensors. "Captain, we have multiple ships decloaking around us. I count 12 vessels, all much larger than our own." The main screen changed to show the space around the Defiance filled with dark, predatory ships. They had been waiting hidden and invisible for the humans to walk into their trap. Now they revealed themselves and began moving to surround the human. "Vessel, all hands to battle stations," Lisa ordered. "Recall the shuttle immediately and prepare for combat. Beth, I need maximum power to shields and weapons." But even as she gave the orders, Lisa knew they were in serious trouble. The Zephyrian ships were faster and more maneuverable than the Defiance. They also had the advantage of numbers and position. Worse still, the humans had walked willingly into this trap, believing they were saving innocent lives. "Commander Silthera, watched the human ship's desperate preparations with satisfaction. Her trap had worked perfectly, and now she had a human vessel exactly where she wanted it. Soon she would have human prisoners to study and human technology to examine. After that, the path to Earth would be clear. Subcommander Kesara, Silthara ordered, activate the dampening field. I do not want this ship escaping to warn others. Energy fields surrounded the Defiance and cut off its ability to jump to faster than light speed. The human ship was now trapped in normal space with no way to run from the superior Zephyrian force. But Katie Sullivan had been monitoring subspace frequencies throughout the rescue operation. In the few seconds before the dampening field activated, she managed to send a coded message toward Earth. The message was short and simple, but it contained everything Human Command needed to know. The trap had been sprung, but the question remained. Whether the Zephyrians had caught what they were really hunting for, or if they had just caught the bait for an even larger trap. The game between predator and prey was about to become much more complicated than either side expected. The UES Defiance shook as Zephyrian tractor beams locked onto its hull. Captain Lisa Morgan gripped her command chair, while sparks flew from damaged control panels around the bridge. The enemy ships had disabled her vessel's weapons and engines. Within minutes of revealing themselves, "Damage report!" Lisa called out over the sound of emergency alarms. Beth Adams worked frantically at her engineering station. "Shields are down to 30% and falling. Main engines are offline and weapon systems are not responding. They hit us with some kind of energy pulse that scrambled our computer systems." Katie Sullivan tried to restore tactical controls, but most of her displays showed only static. "Captain, I cannot get a weapon lock on any of their ships. Our targeting systems are completely disabled." The main screen flickered, and then showed the interior of one of the Zephyrian vessels. A tall figure with silver fur and amber eyes appeared. She wore a black uniform with silver markings that indicated high rank. Her movements were graceful and predatory like a hunting cat. "Human vessel," the alien commander said. Her voice was smooth but carried an undertone of authority that demanded attention. "I am Commander Silthara of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your ship and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your vessel." Lisa stood up and faced the screen. She had been captured before during her career and knew the importance of projecting strength even in defeat. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the United Earth Ship Defiance. We were responding to a distress call from human civilians. We demand safe passage and the right to continue our rescue mission." Silthara smiled and showed sharp white teeth. "There are no human civilians, Captain Morgan. The distress call was created by my intelligence officers to lure your ship into this trap. You and your crew are now prisoners of the Zephyrian Empire." The screen went dark as armed Zephyrian soldiers began cutting through the Defiance's hull. Lisa could hear the sound of plasma torches working on the outer doors. She had perhaps 5 minutes before enemy troops would be inside her ship. "All crew prepare for boarding action," Lisa announced over the ship's communication system. "Destroy all classified materials and computers. Do not let them access our navigation database or communication codes." Dr. Helen Price was still in the medical bay with the rescued colonists when the attack began. She had been studying her medical scans of Amy Brooks and had made a disturbing discovery. The woman's cellular structure showed signs of recent genetic modification, and there were traces of Zephyrian technology in her bloodstream. "Amy," Helen said quietly, "I know what you really are." Amy Brooks looked up from where she sat on the medical examination table. Her frightened expression disappeared and was replaced by something much more calculating. "Dr. Price, you are more observant than my briefing suggested you would be." "You are not a colonist," Helen continued. "You are a Zephyrian, intelligence agent surgically altered to look human." The entire distress call was part of an elaborate deception. Amy nodded and stood up. As she moved, her posture changed from that of a frightened civilian to that of a trained operative. "My real name is Commander Amy Brooks of Human Intelligence. My capture was entirely intentional and part of a plan that has been months in preparation." Helen stared at her in shock. "You mean you wanted to be captured by the Zephyrians?" "Not exactly," Amy replied. "I wanted the Zephyrians to think they had captured me. There is a difference, and that difference is going to save all of our lives." On the bridge, Lisa watched as Zephyrian soldiers cut through the final barrier. The aliens were tall and moved with fluid grace that spoke of superior physical conditioning. Their weapons were advanced energy rifles that could cut through human armor like paper. The lead soldier stepped onto the bridge and looked around with interest. Behind him came more troops, followed by Commander Silthara herself. The Zephyrian. Commander was even more impressive in person than she had appeared on the screen. She radiated confidence and authority. "Captain Morgan," Silthara said, "I have studied your species for many months, and I find humans to be quite fascinating. You have achieved impressive technological advancement despite your obvious physical limitations." Lisa did not respond to the insult. She had learned during her military training that enemy commanders often tried to provoke emotional reactions from their prisoners. Staying calm and focused was the best way to maintain some control over the situation. Silthara walked slowly around the bridge, examining the human technology with obvious interest. "Your ship's design is crude but effective. Your weapons are primitive, but you have learned to use them efficiently. Most importantly, your navigation systems will show us the location of Earth." "The navigation computer has been wiped," Katie Sullivan said defiantly. "You will get nothing from us." Silthara looked at Katie with amusement. "Sub-Commander Kisara," she called to one of her officers, "show these humans what happens when they lie to me." A younger Zephyrian with dark fur stepped forward carrying a scanner device. She pointed it at Katie's tactical station and after a moment nodded to her commander. "The computer core is intact," she reported. "The humans attempted to erase it, but our technology can recover deleted files." Lisa felt a cold pit form in her stomach. If the Zephyrians could access their navigation data, they would have the location of every human colony and eventually Earth itself. The consequences would be catastrophic for her entire species. Beth Adams had been working quietly at her engineering station throughout the conversation. While the Zephyrians were focused on the navigation computer, she had been slowly introducing subtle changes to the ship's power distribution system. Her modifications were too small to trigger alarms, but they would have significant effects later. Sergeant Nancy Clark and her Marines had been recalled from the planet's surface just before the trap was sprung. Now they were trapped in the shuttle bay as Zephyrian troops took control of the ship. Nancy had sent her soldiers to defensive positions, but she knew they could not hold out for long against superior numbers and technology. "Marines," Nancy said over her radio, "remember your training and watch for opportunities. The enemy may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Dr. Helen Price found herself escorted to the bridge, along with Amy Brooks and the other supposed colonists. Most of the rescued people looked confused and frightened, but Amy moved with the confidence of someone who was exactly where she wanted to be. When they reached the bridge, Amy stepped forward and addressed Commander Silthara directly. "Commander, I believe you and I need to have a private conversation about the current strategic situation." Silthara looked at the supposed human colonist with interest. "You are very bold for a primitive human civilian. What could you possibly have to say that would interest me?" Amy smiled, and when she spoke, her voice carried an authority that had not been there before. "I can tell you why your intelligence reports about human military capabilities are completely wrong, and why this trap you are so proud of is actually going to destroy your entire fleet." The Zephyrian commander studied Amy for a long moment. She had not expected any of the human prisoners to show such confidence in the face of capture. Something about this woman suggested there were factors in play that Silthara did not understand. "Very well," Silthara said finally. "You have my attention, human. Explain how a defeated enemy can threaten my fleet." Amy looked around the bridge, at the assembled Zephyrian officers and human prisoners. Everyone was watching her and waiting to see what she would say next. The next few minutes would determine whether her months of preparation had been worth the enormous risks she had taken. Because, "Commander," Amy said, "Earth was not the target of your trap. Earth was the bait and your empire just took it." Commander Silthara stared at Amy Brooks with growing suspicion. The supposed human colonist stood with military bearing that spoke of extensive training and combat experience. Her confident words suggested knowledge that no civilian should possess. "Explain yourself, human," Silthara demanded. "What do you mean Earth was the bait?" Amy smiled, and when she spoke, her voice carried no trace of fear. 3 months ago, human intelligence discovered your empire's expansion plans through intercepted communications. We knew you were looking for Earth, and we knew you would eventually find us, so we decided to let you think you were hunting us while we prepared our own trap. Lieutenant Veltha stepped forward with her weapon raised. Commander, this human is trying to deceive us. We should eliminate her and proceed with our attack on Earth. But Silthera held up a hand to stop her subordinate. Years of experience had taught her to recognize when an enemy was bluffing and when they were telling the truth. Something in Amy's manner suggested she was being completely honest about the danger facing the Zephyrian fleet. Continue, Silthera ordered. Tell me about this supposed trap. Amy gestured toward the main screen, which still showed the space around the captured Defiance. Your ships are currently positioned exactly where human military planners wanted them to be. The distress call was designed not just to capture one human vessel, but to draw your entire strike force into a predetermined location. At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the Zephyrian fleet. Sub-Commander Cassara rushed to her station and began working frantically at the controls. Commander, we have multiple contacts appearing on long-range sensors, large ships approaching at high speed from the direction of the inner system. The main screen changed to show tactical displays as new vessels emerged from behind the system's star. They were human ships, but much larger and more heavily armed than the Defiance. Admiral Grace Turner's voice came over the communication system. As the Earth Defense Fleet revealed itself, Zephyrian vessels, this is Admiral Grace Turner commanding the Human Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately, or face destruction. Silthera looked at the tactical display with growing alarm. The human fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 4 massive dreadnoughts. They had been hiding behind the solar radiation of the star, and were now moving to surround the Zephyrian force. Worse still, their weapons were already charging and targeting systems were locking onto her ships. This is impossible, Cassara said. Our intelligence reports indicated that human military technology was inferior to our own. These ships show advanced shielding and weapon systems that match our best designs. Amy nodded. Your intelligence was based on what we wanted you to see. Every human ship you encountered in the past 6 months was deliberately using outdated technology. We needed you to underestimate our capabilities, so you would commit your forces to this attack. Captain Lisa Morgan watched the unfolding situation with amazement. She had known nothing about the larger strategic plan, but was beginning to understand that her ship's capture had been anticipated and possibly even desired by human command. Beth Adams continued her subtle sabotage of the Defiance's systems. The modifications she was making would not be apparent to Zephyrian engineers, but they were uploading detailed scans of alien technology to hidden transmitters throughout the ship. Human intelligence would soon have complete technical specifications for every Zephyrian system. Dr. Helen Price realized that her medical scans of the supposed colonists had been part of the intelligence-gathering operation. The exotic particles she had detected were actually sophisticated scanning devices that had been recording Zephyrian biological data throughout the capture process. Amy, Helen said quietly, how long have you been planning this operation? 8 months, Amy replied. Ever since we first detected Zephyrian scout ships in human space. We knew this confrontation was inevitable, so we decided to control when and where it happened. Commander Silthara found herself facing a situation she had never encountered before. Her hunters had become the hunted, and her prey had revealed itself to be a far more dangerous predator than she had imagined. The tactical advantage had shifted completely to the humans. All ships prepare for combat, Silthera ordered. We may be outnumbered, but Zephyrian warriors do not surrender to inferior species. But Lieutenant Veltha was studying the tactical displays with growing concern. Commander, the human ships are using weapons specifically calibrated to our shield frequencies. They know exactly how to penetrate our defenses. Amy nodded. Every engagement between our species has been carefully monitored and analyzed. We know your weapon signatures, your shield modulations, and your tactical preferences. This entire operation was designed to gather intelligence while appearing to be random encounters. The first exchange of weapons fire lit up space around the trapped fleets. Human plasma cannons struck Zephyrian shields with devastating effect, while return fire from the alien ships was absorbed harmlessly by advanced human defensive systems. The technological advantage that had given the Empire its dominance was suddenly neutralized. On Earth itself, massive orbital defense platforms were coming online under the command of Admiral Grace Turner's Deputy Commander Vera Stone. These weapons had been constructed in secret over the past 3 months and were specifically designed to counter Zephyrian technology. If any enemy ships managed to escape the current battle, they would find Earth protected by defenses they could not penetrate. "Commander Silthera," came Admiral Turner's voice over the communication system. "Your forward scouts have been monitoring Earth for weeks. What they do not know is that we have been monitoring them as well. Every piece of intelligence they gathered was carefully prepared to support our deception." Silthera realized that her entire understanding of human capabilities had been based on false information. The species she had dismissed as primitive prey had orchestrated one of the most sophisticated military deceptions in galactic history. They had allowed themselves to appear weak while secretly preparing overwhelming force. "How many of our encounters with humans were genuine?" Cassara asked. Amy considered the question. "About 30%. The rest were carefully staged to make you overconfident. We needed you to believe you could defeat us easily so you would commit your best ships and officers to this attack." Sergeant Nancy Clark and her Marines were still trapped in the shuttle bay, but they had been listening to the battle through their communication systems. Nancy realized that her capture along with the rest of the crew was part of a larger plan to draw out the enemy fleet. "Marines," she said over her radio, "looks like Command knew what they were doing after all. Stay ready, because this fight is not over yet." The space battle continued with human ships systematically destroying or disabling Zephyrian vessels. The alien fleet tried to retreat, but found their escape routes blocked by additional human ships that had been waiting in hyperspace. Commander Silthara watched her proud fleet being torn apart by an enemy she had completely underestimated. "Amy Brooks," Silthara said, turning to face the human intelligence officer. "Your species has proven to be far more cunning than we anticipated, but this battle is only the beginning. The Empire will not forget this defeat." Amy nodded. "We are counting on that, Commander. This operation was designed not just to defeat your current force, but to send a message to your Empire. Humanity is not the easy prey you thought we were." The battle was winding down with most of the Zephyrian fleet disabled or destroyed, but both species knew this was only the opening move in a much larger conflict. The Empire had learned that humans were dangerous enemies, while humanity had proven they could match alien technology and tactics. The real war was just beginning. The space around the Defiance filled with debris from destroyed Zephyrian ships as Admiral Grace Turner's fleet pressed their attack. Commander Silthara watched from her flagship as vessel after vessel in her force was disabled or destroyed by human weapons that seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. "Commander, we have lost 7 ships and the others are reporting critical damage," Sub-Commander Cassara announced. Her voice remained steady, but Silthara could see the fear in her green eyes. "We cannot continue this engagement." Silthara stared at the tactical display showing the positions of both fleets. Her hunters had become the hunted in a way she had never experienced before. The humans had not just defeated her ships, they had made her entire strategy meaningless by turning her own tactics against her. "Signal all ships to withdraw to minimum safe distance," she ordered. "We will regroup and assess our options." But Amy Brooks shook her head. "Commander, your ships are not going anywhere. Human forces have been tracking your fleet since you entered this system. Every escape route has been blocked by additional vessels waiting in hyperspace." As if summoned by her words, more human ships appeared on the sensors. These were smaller and faster than Admiral Turner's heavy cruisers, but they carried weapons specifically designed to disable enemy engines and navigation systems. The Zephyrian fleet was completely surrounded. Captain Lisa Morgan watched the battle unfold from her position on the bridge of the captured Defiance. She was beginning to understand that her ship and crew had been used as bait in a trap that was far more sophisticated than anything she had imagined possible. "Amy," Lisa said, "how long have you known this was going to happen?" Amy turned to face her fellow captain. "I have been part of this operation from the beginning. My assignment was to ensure that the Defiance would be in the right place at the right time to trigger the Zephyrian response. Your humanitarian instincts made you the perfect choice for this mission." Lisa felt a mixture of anger and admiration. She had been manipulated, but the manipulation had been done by her own people for the protection of Earth. and all human colonies. The sacrifice of one ship and crew had potentially saved millions of lives. Beth Adams had completed her sabotage of the ship's systems and was now uploading the final batch of technical data to hidden transmitters. Human intelligence would soon have complete specifications for every piece of Zephyrian technology on the captured vessel. Captain, Beth said quietly, I have finished downloading their computer cores. We now have their star charts, navigation, routes, and communication codes. Intelligence will be able to track every ship in their fleet. Dr. Helen Price was treating wounded Zephyrian soldiers who had been injured during the battle. Despite being enemies, she could not ignore her medical oath to help those who needed care. As she worked, she continued gathering biological data that would help human scientists understand their opponents. One of the wounded Zephyrians looked up at her with amber eyes that showed both pain and confusion. Why do you help us human? The soldier asked. We came here to conquer your species. Helen continued her work without looking up. Because healing is what I do, regardless of who needs it. That is something your intelligence reports probably did. Not mention about humans. The space battle was winding down as the remaining Zephyrian ships found themselves unable to fight or flee. Admiral Turner's voice came over the communication system with terms for surrender. Commander Silthara, this is your final warning. Surrender your remaining vessels and prepare to be taken into custody. Any further resistance will result in the complete destruction of your fleet. Silthara looked around her bridge at officers, who had never experienced defeat before. The Empire had built its reputation on technological superiority and tactical excellence, but both had been neutralized by human cunning and preparation. Lieutenant Veltha stepped forward with her weapon. Still ready. Commander, we should fight to the death, rather than surrender to these primitives. The honor of the Empire demands it, but Silthara shook her head. The honor of the Empire demands that we survive to learn from this defeat. Signal Admiral Turner that we accept surrender terms. Amy Brooks nodded with satisfaction. A wise choice, Commander. Human intelligence has been studying Zephyrian psychology for months. We knew that ultimately your sense of honor would prevent you from choosing meaningless death over strategic withdrawal. The surrender process began with Zephyrian ships powering down their weapons and submitting to human boarding parties. Commander, Vera Stone led the operation to secure enemy vessels and take prisoners while maintaining the tactical advantage that had won the battle. Sergeant Nancy Clark and her Marines were finally able to leave the shuttle bay as human forces retook control of the Defiance. Nancy found herself impressed by the scope of the operation that had led to their capture and subsequent rescue. Captain Morgan, Nancy said as she reported to the bridge, I have to admit, this was the most complex mission I have ever been part of. Command really outdid themselves with this one. Lisa nodded. I just hope it was worth the risk. We could have lost everything if the plan had failed. Amy smiled. The plan could not fail, Captain, because it was designed with multiple contingencies. If the Zephyrians had not taken the bait, we would have found another way to draw them out. If they had detected the deception, we had backup forces ready to respond. Every possibility was considered and planned for. Commander Silthara was brought aboard Admiral Turner's flagship for formal surrender ceremonies. She moved with dignity despite her defeat and showed no signs of the fear or desperation that might have been expected from a captured enemy. Admiral Turner. Silthara said, I acknowledge the tactical superiority of human forces in this engagement. Your species has proven to be far more capable than our intelligence indicated. Admiral Turner was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and steady, blue eyes that had seen many battles. Commander Silthara, your empire, made the mistake of judging us by our appearance rather than our capabilities. That is an error we will ensure you do not repeat. The aftermath of the battle saw human teams working to secure Zephyrian technology and gather intelligence about the Empire's military capabilities. The captured ships would be studied extensively to prepare for future encounters between the two species. Dr. Helen Price found herself working alongside Zephyrian medical officers to treat wounded from both sides. Despite the hostility between their species, the shared experience of healing began to build small bridges of understanding. Your healing techniques are quite advanced, one Zephyrian medic commented. Perhaps our species could learn from each other if circumstances were different. Helen nodded. Medicine should transcend politics and warfare. Saving lives is something both our peoples can understand. But even as the immediate crisis ended, both Admiral Turner and Commander Silthera knew this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. The Empire would not accept defeat easily, and humanity had revealed capabilities that would change the balance of power in this region of space. Commander Admiral Turner said during the surrender ceremony, "This battle has shown both our species what the other is capable of. I hope future encounters will involve negotiation rather than warfare." Silthera considered the Admiral's words carefully. "Admiral Turner, the Empire does not forgive defeats or abandon territories it considers rightfully ours. This engagement has only delayed the inevitable conflict between our peoples." "Then we will be ready," Admiral Turner replied. "Humanity has learned that appearing weak can be a strength and that patience can defeat aggression. Your Empire will find us far different opponents than you expected." As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth with their prisoners and captured technology, both sides began planning for the next phase of their relationship. The hunters had learned they could become the hunted, while the prey had shown they could become predators when necessary. The war between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Earth was no longer a defenseless target waiting to be conquered, but a dangerous enemy that had proven its ability to outthink and outfight its opponents. In the end, both species had gained what they needed most. Humanity had time to prepare for future conflicts, while the Empire had learned the true capabilities of their newest enemy. The next time they met, the battle would be between equals who understood and respected each other's strengths.